Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram language design review, part of our incremental language development series. We are looking at supposedly low-hanging projects, as in low-hanging fruit, that have been saved up over the last decade or so, and we're trying to dispatch them and decide what to do with them. All right. Nested list graph. Well, this is, gosh, isn't this exactly, why do I have to go to the Jira ticket here? Isn't this exactly what Brad has been working on with graph evaluation, with the directed acyclic evaluate and things like this, or is this something different? Anybody know what this is?
So Ian had the options there. Ian had talked a little bit about these things as they apply to trees.
What are
these options? Were assuming that what you wanted was something that takes nested lists and produces a graph, but I'm not sure that that's what this was supposed to be.
I think we are, I mean, this is lovely, but I think we are, we're exploring a bunch of this stuff, and that's part of what our whole story of graph evaluation, which we need to do more on. I mean, I think directed acyclic evaluate, not by that name, should become a system function somehow.
Actually, after the tech conference, we rewrote it, and there's a new version 2 at WFR right now, is probably under review.
Okay. Well, it's a, the concept is similar to treefold, except it's for graphs, right, guys?
Well, only for directed acyclic graphs. If there's a loop in the graph, you can't get the foliation. And now the new version 2, it's much more ordered in how it does all the calculation, and that ordering is based on first computing the foliation.
Okay, but I mean, a loop is x equals x plus 1, basically. I mean, it's the same story. Yeah, I mean, let's not go into that right now. Okay, I think there's nothing here that is still sort of current and relevant to us in this item, unless I'm missing something. Any comments from people?
No, I think that makes sense to me.
Okay, generate password. I kind of think we should have this. I think this is useful. I think this is something we've got WFR things for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any good reason we shouldn't have it as a system function.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we'd want to do is, like we say, have methods or have schemas for, is this a string of ASCII characters, the standard sort of things you'd have for a password generator on a password keeper. Or
yeah, right. But I mean, but there's a default.
Mm-hmm.
Generate password open close is just going to give the current default. And obviously, if you ask for a password sometime, you're going to get a different password each time.
Yeah.
And presumably, seed random. Well, that's an interesting question. Mm-hmm. Is this something that does block random, repeat the password generator, or is the password generator more like create UUID, which presumably create UUID is not affected by any seed block random stuff, right?
That's my understanding.
I mean, I can't imagine it is. It would be crazy if it was.
Yeah.
And I think generate password should be like, and probably the create UUID documentation should probably affirmatively say that it is not affected by that. I bet it doesn't. Okay, we should explicitly put something in here.
Okay, yeah, we'll pass that along.
So, I mean, we have WFR version of generate password. Let's look at them. Let's figure out what to do.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
And it should have options for things like speakable passwords and, pass phrases and stuff like this.
Yeah, include special characters, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay. Web sync. This is basically wget, I think. I don't know if we have WFRs for this, and I have a feeling it's kind of a messy business. I mean, in other words, what would we do? So we can, we can make a directory that is a copy of some file, some stuff on the web, right? I don't know how. I mean, is wget like a standard Unix utility at this point?
Pretty much. I don't know if it's part of all distributions, but it's pretty ubiquitous.
So if I say that's not encouraging. Oh, it finally came up. Okay. I have a question. I mean, is there a version of wget that is an API version, the wget, 5 or something instead of 1 there, that we could just library link to?
Not really. I mean, right, we have curl link, and that gives us access to the curl library, which is has a great deal of overlap with wget.
Well, but do people think this is useful? I mean, a scenario that I can imagine is the local cache mechanism, which is used to cache a single web page. I can imagine it being pretty nice to be able to just say, I want to cache this whole website so that I can access it locally. I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, so that I can then use local file : stuff. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, you basically clone some subset of the web tree.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is realistic anymore, because I'm not sure that people are just running off pure web servers, because you can clone the HTML files, but it needs a singing, dancing, server thing.
Yeah. I could certainly ask Fahim, what overlap there is with curl here,
Yes.
and what the applications actually look like these days.
Fine, let's do that. I think this is more of a WFR story.
Yeah, that's at least a good place to start with.
Okay. Color string.
Yeah, so this is something that we propose adding to WFR rather than having a system function. We do have some notion of getting the color string via color entities. So if we look at the hex value for a given color, it includes the
Okay,
hex
so if I
value.
say fuchsia, if I could spell it. It's not a color. Wow, okay.
It's already in the function repository, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
What is?
Color to hex is the name of it.
Okay. So the question is, should this be a system function?
Yes. There's beyond just the hex values, there's HTML names, etc. We have that data in the color entities, but
although it's not completely trivial and because if I tweak this pink slightly, is it still, well, this makes sense, but if we say what's the name of the color, that's a different story. Don't we have a color name function?
Don't believe so. We have two entity of colors, and that may just come back as a Wolfram language color.
Okay, so if I say, let me get the color chooser up. Okay, so Nope, not very useful.
Yeah.
I thought we had a function that said what the name of the nearest color was. I mean, and we also have things like in Wolfram Alpha, we certainly have things that tell you the nearest paint colors and things like this.
There's a WFR submission nearest color name.
Okay.
Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
See, look at that thing. Escape. Okay. Okay. So the question is this useful enough to be a system function?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think that this is what that proposed function is, right? Color string, right? I mean, you can ask for the, like, I mean, right, HTML defines certain standard color names of, you know,
Yeah, I understand.
right, in addition to accepting RGB. And right, those are specific, right? Those are very specific colors. So
No, I
my
understand that, but
understanding
if
of
you-
this function is something that takes, takes a directive and, gives you the name in the specified format.
No, I understand that, but if I've got an arbitrary RGB color, how does HTML give a name to that, as opposed to just a hex value?
Or it doesn't. It gives it a hex value.
Okay, fine. Right, but there are also color names.
Yes.
Okay. Well, who would be the user? Who would be the potential users of this? I think we should ask, like, Jeremy and Shadi about this one before we kill it off.
Jeremy Davis, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wondered if there's some way to interface this with color data, but color data kind of is a different animal. Yeah, we're not necessarily working on individual colors in color data. They're
Indeed.
schemes. So
I don't know how this relates to the color palette repository. Maybe it doesn't. I'm having a hard time imagining the case where you need the name of a color, other than in some kind of describe this picture type situation. Like, I mean, if I say, for example, yeah, that's pretty pathetic. I mean, it'd be much better to be able to say the name there. Okay, so I mean, look, to me, both of these cases, both the hex string, which is very algorithmic, and the name thing have mild utility. I just don't know if it's above the threshold.
okay.
They both don't seem crazy to me to have them.
Mm-hmm.
Color string and color name. I mean, it would go along with a lot of other stuff we have that's that type of thing. Okay, let's keep going here. Region packing data. Well, to me, this is in modern times, is a very WFR-like thing. Todd Rowland had gotten a long way, and somebody else also got a fair distance in encoding all of this stuff. And I mean, do we have like a lot of these things, like optimal sorting networks? I look those up probably twice a year. And, we have conveniently a demonstration that I think I might have put in there. It has those things in it, but it probably should be in a data repository entry. This probably could be in a data repository entry as well, these optimal packings.
Is optimal packings, are those related at all to our discussion from last week
Which of many discussions.
about image collages or graphics collages?
Mildly. I mean, this is more like, how do you pack 5 disks into a disk? into a circle.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it doesn't allow that the objects you would be packing together have significantly different shapes.
That's correct in this case. Um,
So what do you call it when you try to pack a bunch of different things together?
not a packing. I mean, this
Oh.
is kind of a
Semi-exact cover or something.
yeah, right. So this is okay. So okay, I forgot. This is all in Wolfram Alpha. So for goodness sake, let's expose this either as a WFR or in the data repository.
Okay. Yeah, we'd taken one pass at looking at it, and the code in Alpha wasn't super portable, but
How can it not be portable? This is very algorithmic.
yeah, I think it is algorithmic. I think it's just the way that it was written isn't very easy to transpose outside of the scanner framework in Alpha, but
See.
it's been a while since I was in a discussion about that, so maybe it's gotten more
Okay, this is
modular.
lovely. I mean, this is lovely. I would never guess or even have remembered that Wolfram Alpha would do this. I mean, pack 44 squares in a circle. I wonder if it'll do that. Yeah, look at that. It's magnificent.
Yeah, I think the images in particular a nice reference
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I mean, and this could be something either WTR. I don't know how algorithmic this is or how much this is just a table. We should determine that.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up on that then.
I mean, I think a whole lot of work was put into this, so let's, leverage that. Okay, rule space data. I have to say, I need this with some frequency, and I mean, I'd be perfectly happy to see it in WDR. I think this is a Brad production. I mean, this would be rule space data of cellular automata, and then,
Yeah, my suggestion was to kind of bundle this with the rule plot stuff too.
well, it can't be in the rule plot function.
Well, no, I'm just saying make like a super project or something.
Well, yes, that might be true, but look, arguably, the question is, would there one day be a simple systems repository that contains, in other words, if we've got tag systems and lag systems and this kind of thing and that kind of thing, it feels very repositoryistic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not, because we're going to, there's all kinds of random types of systems that have been defined. I don't know. See, the problem is,
well, even the cellular automata, if some of the cellular automata that you can get to work and produce outputs, they don't have a description. If they don't have a description via rule plot, they apparently work. I can see them working, but I don't know what they're doing. So having, even just for this base case of cellular automata, having a more metadata would be really helpful to the users, because the codes can get extremely confusing.
well, you're saying to be able to take a code 7564 long number.
Well,
break
no,
it down.
actually, the codes that I'm talking about are the ones that are like a mixture of nested parentheses or brackets and numbers.
Yeah, but right, but now in the cellular automaton function, we have this way of doing that with associations, but we have no converter from, we have several problems. We have no converter between the pure rule number and its, totalistic code, blah, 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 next nearest neighbor, whatever thing. That's one issue, is converting between types of specifications. This is a case where, it's like program translation, right? We got a program and there's different ways to state the same program. There's kind of a minimal version of that. It's like Boolean minimize or Boolean convert, where there's different ways to state a Boolean function in terms of this primitive or that primitive.
Yeah, that may be true, but to characterize the problem, I think it's just mainly missing metadata.
Well, but what's the input? What's the output?
Well, we can, if we have a working function, potentially you just map over all possible inputs and get the outputs. But that still might not tell us the simplest description of the rule, or the simplest description of the rule is some piece of metadata that we'd like to have, that if we know that metadata, any potential transformation of codes or rules, whatever we can do.
Sorry, so what function are you proposing there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it could be a data thing where the purpose of a data entry for some particular rule is just to give a succinct description of what it's expected to do. And maybe there's more than one.
Look,
you know,
I think it's like, maybe it's like a rule information thing where you give it, where the way it works is you say, well, actually, why aren't we just reusing the information function? Well, maybe this is wrong. Because something like this, for that particular rule, we can do that. We could have an information function thing that will give it in different formats, but that's not solving the problem of the rule space data problem, which is asking the question, what's the maximum number? If these things say 30, 2, 3, what's the maximum number? What's the range of numbers that I can put here? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a fairly simple function.
I know it's simple, but I've worked it out like 1,000 times. All there's totalistic things and this and that and the other. Two-dimensional symmetric ones, it's much more complicated. It takes 10 minutes to work out every time. I go and look at some old paper I wrote to find it. It's just kind of goofball.
Yeah, so it sounds like then there's two separate things that need to be dealt with. The first being the making sure that all the codes are easy to interpret, and then the second being given like overall data about all the sets.
Yeah, given a description, which could be in this association form, totalistic. I don't know what the association form from cellular automata. And given that, given one of these things or something, given a thing that says dimension, range, yeah, you see, this is the right thing. Given a thing that says dimension, 2, range, 3, then we simply should be able to ask, how many rules are there consistent with this? Look, why don't we put a WFR thing in there for right now that just lets you take an incomplete association that doesn't contain the rule numbers and lets you, from this, generate, just say how many elements there are in that rule space. Does that make sense? Brad, I think that's something for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then also the rule converter, let's try and put that in WFR as well. Okay. So, I mean, we'll have to have names for conversions, like turn this into a totalistic rule if it is totalistic, or complain if it isn't, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I may have to dig into the source code a little bit, because there really are some codes I've seen that I have no idea what they mean or what they do.
Okay, fine. Different issue. Okay. All right. That's on your thing. So let's keep going here, please. Time series of timing utilization of all CPUs involved in a particular computation. What the heck is that?
So I think the idea would be you'd get something like a performance readout for an evaluation. So rather than timing or memory used, you would get a second by second breakdown of CPU usage. So if you look at like your task manager or something like that on the system.
I think this is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, by default, like on modern Macs, we don't even the OS won't even let us get this information necessarily. So
let's throw this out. This is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, what about if there was some thing like absolute timing that if you put in a really complicated expression, it automatically breaks the time statistics down into incremental steps. Because like,
Well,
yeah,
that's some kind of profiling, but that's different from this. That's profiling of different. I mean, we've already got that with echo timing. You've already got some pieces of that.
yeah, I use echo timing a lot, but the particular case I was thinking of is like, let's say that you write a fairly complicated function and you don't know where the slowdown is.
Yeah, I understand, but this is not going to solve that. I mean, look, the other case would be you've got a list and you're doing operations on every element of the list, and you want to. I mean, again, okay. The thing about profiling, which is what you're basically asking for, is something that as we get better abstract syntax trees, we have a better chance to be able to do that, because we can actually label pieces of source code and we can say this piece of source code took this long. Right now, we don't know what piece of source code some executed piece of expression evaluation is. That makes sense. So I think there's a thing in 6 months, we will have something, you know, when we've really got better abstract syntax trees or concrete syntax trees, we're in better position for this, I think. Worthwhile thing, but not right now.
Right.
All right, let's keep going.
So this section is a little bit all over the place. We can try grabbing extra people if we need to, or we can circle back if there's particular things of interest.
Okay, dotted lines for obscured 3D edges. Do we have any hope there? That would be lovely. I mean, it's part of, you know, it's like cross-hatching and things. You know, cross-hatching was a creature of the 19th century, so to speak, for you know, technical diagrams, and it's lovely that we can do that now. Although I still have yet to actually use it in production. Maybe I used it once so far. But this would be really cool. I mean, if I draw something like a
sphere behind a cube or something like that.
well, I was thinking of just a you know, a graphics 3D of style icosahedron, face form none. Yeah, I mean, it would be really cool to be able to see the obscured lines here as dotted.
Okay.
That's what people used to do, you know, in books 100 years ago, right? Because right now there's nothing we can do. I mean, other than, you know, I could fill in here some very light. Yeah, I mean, that's what this is about. Right? Is how do you show the obscured edges dotted as they would in any ancient book? Okay, so I don't know who's involved in. I would have thought in modern times, with all the stuff we're doing, that this might be rather easy. That Yutsu or somebody like that might know how to do it.
Well, I don't think anybody in this meeting knows how to do it.
Okay, so who's taking that? Is Avery going to take that to? I would suggest Yutsu and Brett.
Mm-hmm. I can. Yep, I can ask them.
But my opinion is, if we can do it, we should do it. This is a very nice thing.
I mean, I don't know that we should do it automatically.
No, I don't think we should do it automatically, but I think there should be a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just like, I wonder if can I do something like what am I doing here? Hatch shading. That's not very useful. Why didn't that work? That looks terrible. Why didn't that work?
That's probably just rasterized. I mean, try reevaluating it.
Yeah, but why didn't this work? Where are my parallel lines? Sigh. I mean, we can try this, but that shouldn't be any different. Okay, that's a bug, guys. Plus, it doesn't look very good here. I mean, what I'm looking for, which we don't apparently have, is something analogous to I mean, this style form thing, Avery, I think that's for you to report as a bug, okay?
Okay.
Okay, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that kind of cross-hatching on the faces here. You know what I'm saying? With the appropriate perspective and so on.
Okay.
That's another separate question. Why can't we do that? Because this is just a GPU shader. As opposed to something like this, which is more algorithmic. I mean, more sort of top-level algorithmic.
All this reminds me of like drafting diagrams, right? Which
Yeah,
are not 100 years old. Like people still use those.
sure.
The dotted lines in the hashing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. No. There's nothing. I'm just saying that's what was used 100% of the time for like mathy type stuff back in the day.
Yeah. But I think if you're sending specs to a machine shop, I think that's still
Yeah.
what they use.
Yeah. So, okay, different group of people. Let's make sure we have those for another time. Okay, let's keep going. This is a dead story.
Okay.
Hardware random numbers for random and integer. Okay, so I suspect that's we don't have the right people here. You really should have pulled in different set of people here because
Yeah, I mean, we have a dozen different people potentially talking on different subjects.
I know,
here.
so we should have told them they're on call and pulled them in if we need them, because otherwise we can't make progress on this. I mean, this particular thing, I could go yakety yak about it, but really we need Rob or somebody else who knows how the library connections work. Makes sense?
Okay.
I mean, that particular thing seems worthwhile, and it's probably an option to seed random to get this. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, come on, we got to have the right people here for this. Most of these are not doable here. Okay, symbolic n by n matrices, that's for Roger. It's nothing to do with future arrays.
Okay.
Okay, and symbolic matrices are something we've been discussing for 20 years. I don't know, I don't know the state of that. That's a question for Roger.
And I mean, we have that to a certain extent, right? Right. You can declare something to be an n by n matrix, and
I know I hate the way that works, but yes. By the way, does anybody know if we've scheduled the meeting about cleaning the design of data structure?
Guess that'd be a question for Jose.
Well, ultimately,
You
Not
mean
data?
data-
Not data. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Data container or data structure?
data structure. Data structure. Data structure was a preliminary design. That involves Tom and Christopher and several other people.
Mhm.
But can we please get that scheduled? Avery, can you maybe take that and get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pass that along.
Okay. Extension of moon phase.
We should be getting more properties about the moon in the Astro project,
Yeah,
second
I would
iteration.
think so. I mean, do we need to talk about this right here? I don't think we do. I think this can be
No.
considered in process.
Mhm.
Okay, this is recurring dates, right?
Yeah, it's part of it is trivial things like next instance of a leap year or some date qualification, and then recurring dates would be the general framework where next, previous, current instances of them would come from.
Well, so do we have next date instance?
We have next date, previous date, and current date, and they can take existing granularities or a day type. So you can say next date of Wednesday, and it will give you next Wednesday. But we can't say next date of leap year because it's not a granularity or a day type.
Okay. But so what about string values inside next date?
Yeah, so we have string values for any granularity or the various day types.
So what else is being asked for here?
The idea would be, additional decorations beyond granularities and day types where we have either notions of special days. So I want to know, the next time Pi Day comes around or Easter. I also may want to know, when
I mean, we've curated a lot of holidays for Wolfram Alpha.
Mhm.
I don't know whether those are accessible here at all.
They are in dev mode, I believe.
Oh, really? So I mean, but if I say something like, I don't know, is there a grandparents' day?
Yeah. No, we just missed it.
And except unless we're in South Sudan, which seems to have
Interesting.
prepped their own. Wow, funky. Okay. But so we have tons of data on this stuff, which is not currently exposed in the language.
Yeah, I mean, we do have holidays that you can access through entity value, at least internally. So if you do,
So does this work? I mean, if I say grandparents' day,
I don't believe that spellings are hookup. Yeah, so this is the current mechanism, which is it will resolve on alpha and then it will return the closest instance of it. But if you do something like entity of holiday, comma, yeah, the names are going to be. So
by the way, I think we maybe should do a look with graphic design at this
disambiguation.
Yeah, disambiguation blob. I think it could be more beautiful and easier to read. So could we take that over again for you? Could you screen cap this and then?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have a bunch of these things.
Yeah, so like if you look at a data set, for example, of any of those holidays,
well, let's see, does this work? I mean, if I say next date.
Not currently.
Okay. So maybe that should work.
Yeah, it could work. I mean, part of the problem right now is that some of this framework for holidays relies on some representation of either recurring dates or headless dates. So like if you look at the date for Halloween, it will give you, or Mathematica Day, you know, this date function, for example, is blank in that one. But
how could it, why is first year 2000? Is that, did we really manage to go, whatever, I'm going to find out what the heck this is. Did this come from our sort of proclamation thing from, who knows? I don't even want to know. Some bizarre thing. Okay. Anyway, but okay. So the issue is we don't yet have a way of specifying recurring dates.
yeah, so recurring / generic dates are kind of a prerequisite to extending this framework and making it fully fleshed out.
Fine, but generic dates seem like they're. Both generic seems like the most obviously necessary, and then recurring comes after that.
Yeah,
and then this is probably even after that. But I think having this work seems harmless. Don't you think? I mean, is it easy to do? Isn't it just a property of this?
Well, I mean, right now the problem is that the property doesn't expose the underlying function. So,
so you'd have to go ask alpha, basically.
Yeah, we could do that, but it's not great.
It's not great. Seems to me we're not quite ready for this.
Okay.
Okay, the virtual machine function is previewed in WFR, except that it isn't the Bitcoin one. It's things like the PDP1. Right?
In the backlit repository, not WFR, right?
No, it's in WFR.
Oh, yeah. It's also in Packlet.
Okay. Well, right, fine. By the way, somebody would be nice if somebody could add to my homepage, my internal homepage, the Packlet repository. So I'm not asking people.
Yeah, I have a note of that. I'll pass that along to Kristen.
Okay, thanks. All right. So where is it here? Virtual machine. Oh, I'm wrong about it being in the function repository. It's here, yeah. Right, but we didn't get the blockchain virtual machines. And what the heck happened here? It's just blank.
Maybe they didn't write that page.
Maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah.
This
is an early submission to the Packard repository. I've asked the creator to update it with the most recent tools.
Okay. I mean, it's something where this would be a great project which we could feed to Rory for students and things who want to add virtual machines. It's a good project. Both the abstract ones, the blockchain ones, etc. Could that get communicated, please?
Yep, I could pass that to Corey or Rory. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, I don't think there's any further action here for this. Okay, this is data container. Yes, that's where that goes. HTTP response function. I thought we had this now. Oh.
Yeah, I don't think we have something that specifically
Don't have
switches on the
this.
method.
We don't have this. That would be a web aficionado has to tell us whether this is a useful thing. It seems useful to me. I mean, that's what a oh my gosh, what is it called? A what kind of API? People always say a REST API. Right?
Yeah.
That's what a REST API. Gosh, I haven't used that term in so long because it went out of fashion. But that's what a REST API really is supposed to do, is support all those different methods. But in fact, what people came to mean by REST API is pretty much the get and post methods.
Right.
So I don't quite understand. I mean, let's say it's a delete method. I mean, does it have the same? I have no idea whether these methods have the same argument structure. You know, with question marks and things in the URLs and so on. I think this is a question for Ricardo would be the right person to answer the question, does this actually make sense? So let's ask him. Okay, structured country, structured US state. We should have those. I mean, I don't understand why we don't. Like, structured US state is really a no-brainer. You know, WV for West Virginia and so on. Structured country, I would have thought we could use the internet codes and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think there is built-in support for country and US state to read those codes natively, but I don't think there is a specific structured instance for either of them.
Seems useful to me. Not huge, but useful.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
What does structured mean in this context?
It means that it doesn't require any NLU.
I see.
Yeah, it's conforming to some predefined syntax.
So it could have
multiple. So it has to be like the official, like we'd accept WI, perhaps in any capitalization, but not
WIS.
No, not WISC or something.
Right.
Not Cheeseland.
Right. Yeah. So this seems useful, but not, it's not a hugely high priority, but it seems useful to me. Temporal logic.
Yeah, which is itself a subset of general modal logic. We've looked at this a couple of times in the past, but really, I think having a better plan for modal logic as a whole makes sense before specifically tackling temporal logic.
Well, I think it's going to be useful. I mean, look, okay, not every invention of mathematical logic turns out to actually be useful or sensible. I could start listing ones that aren't. Okay, I don't really know enough about, the different branches of modal logic to know. I mean, have I ever used modal logic? Not really. Is there a I mean, I think there are pieces of modal logic which spurted out in totally random, useless directions. Temporal logic, I kind of know there are things we want to represent which are conveniently represented in temporal logic. I mean, there's also, a spatial analog of temporal logic as well.
Right. I mean, the very preliminary bits of conversations we've had with Roger where he's interested in spatial logic are that we don't want to put the cart before the horse and spec these things out for temporal logic and then have to redo everything for spatial logic.
I wouldn't worry about it. I really wouldn't worry about it. I think we should try and do that. I think they're all fairly complicated. And I think there are different issues for all of them. And, are we doing 3D spatial logic? Are we doing, it's going to get very complicated very quickly. And I think the 1D case of temporal logic is worth looking at in its own merits. Now, other kinds of modal logics, like what's the one called where you have, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff with them, Kripke semantics and Montgomery, whatever they are, and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. There's lots of different kinds, none of which, I don't really know which what's possible versus what's impossible, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, okay, my question here, I'm looking at like this Wikipedia page as well. Let's look at it. It's probably a better place. Let's look at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. All right. Those are interesting. That's an interesting table. I mean, as we work towards the symbolic discourse language, and we don't have the right people to discuss that here, these are things that we will definitely need. I mean, at least those ones. Those are really fairly straightforward ones, but it gets much crazier. See, here's a very basic question, okay? Putting the axiom systems for these logics into axiomatic theory would be an obvious first step. Am I making sense? Does anybody even have an opinion about this?
I mean, I think some of these modal logics are cool, although I'm not sure they're super widely used.
No, but I mean, for our symbolic discourse language, we are going to need these things. So-and-so believes that, whatever.
Sure.
I mean, again, look, seems to me the first step is get their axiom system, because then we can prove theorems in these logics. I mean, what else are we going to do with these logics? Okay, Jose, what would we do with temporal logic?
So we try to connect to things like expressing cooking recipes and the flow of programs and things like that.
Flow of what?
Of a program, how something evolves. So here we have branches. So this is one of these things in which we can have branches. And so we can express that these branches is going, something needs to happen in this branch before something else happens in the other branch, and things like that. So there are some applications, but I don't think there is anything urgent that needs this.
No, I understand. I mean, maybe it's another student type project to try and, okay, hold on. Look, there's several different things. One is we can do proofs in modal logics. I suspect that our theorem prover is strong enough that we could actually do many simple proofs here. Am I making sense? If we had the
sorry, we would have to find an extension, right? So in the same way that we went from equational logic to general predicate logic, this would require yet another extension.
These don't have equational axiom systems?
That's not clear to me. I mean, I consider this some sort of extensions of a general propositional logic.
No, I understand that, but I think that they have equational axiom systems. Don't they?
I don't know.
I think
That would be a first question to answer.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't, then what algorithms do we have for dealing with them? I have to believe that they do. Oh boy, the fact that I don't know the answer to this is a very, very bad sign. Does anybody know the answer here?
I mean, can't a lot of these be represented in terms of just first order logic?
One would assume so, yes.
Right. So then, you know, there are equational axioms for first order logic, right? Axiom systems.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I found a site that basically claims that it has the axioms for basic modal logic axioms. Oh yeah, and it quotes a standard book, Van Bentham. I think I've seen that book. Yeah, I mean, this just has freaking axiom systems. They're just axioms. You know, diamond P is equivalent to square diamond P. Okay, fine. I mean, we can, in fact, we've already got things like this here. This is the same axiom here. Even with the same number as the other thing I'm looking at. So, okay, first step is, if we bring, you know, axiomatic theory, I don't know whether we have anybody who's currently curating axiomatic theory. I don't know, Jose, you were the last point of contact there.
No, I don't think anybody is working on that right now. So Nick has made some changes in proof object and find equational proof. And that
Right.
has been the last thing we did.
Have those been committed? Are those in 13.2?
Yes, they are in 13.2.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe some people at the Institute want to contribute some axiomatic theory stuff, because we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, this is a, I don't know how we deal with this, but this seems like it's a repository. I mean, it will be, okay, this is a good reason to have a axiomatic theory repository so people can contribute to it. But this seems like, you know, seems like these modal logic things are the kind of thing that would take somebody who actually has actually understood it like an hour to put in the basic axioms here. And okay, the question is, does anybody know how modal logic works? That is the question. And then for temporal logic, how much had we already implemented, Jose? Is there enough stuff that we could just put a packlet out there of what we have so far of temporal logic?
So in the previous project, what we did is creating some design for the until operators, etc., the extensions here, and then connecting to an external library that was doing the proofs.
And the proofs are believed to not be equational. Is that true, or do we have any idea?
Well, at the time, we didn't have the extension of equational proof to first order logic that Jonathan created. And so that's why we went directly to an external library that was handling this type of logic. But I
don't think Jonathan's extension is terribly efficient.
It's not. That's why I'm worried of extending it yet again here.
Right.
Because my understanding is that this is some sort of extension of the capabilities of propositional logic. And
well, so I think the goal would be, you know, can we take, including maybe the external library connection, could we take that and put it in the Packlet repository?
Perhaps we could explore that.
Let's find out. Right. I consider this to be, I mean, I don't know how important this is. This is one of the pillars that is going to be necessary for the symbolic discourse language project. It's one of the calculi of representing the world that's going to be needed. So it'd be great to know what the status is. All right,
Okay.
let's go on for the time being here. Hans comments on the live stream that a use case for temporal logic can be a rules engine in medical informatics, for example, timing on taking or administering drugs. Yeah, well, I bet we've certainly implemented things like that because we had to implement that particular thing for that big project that we did a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, the representation of, see, one question is, what's the relationship between temporal logic and the representation of recurring dates? How close are they? What's the, what? Right, because if we're saying this thing happens forever, this thing happens until this thing happens, and so on, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think there's some potential relationship between them. We can kind of think of temporal logic as both modal logic and also as symbolic relationships between dates, where recurring dates or generic dates are either symbolic representations of scheduling or something along that lines, where I could see some interplay, but the general application of temporal logic is a little more abstract than something that's specifically tied to given date instances most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We explored a bit the relation with the geometry of intersections of intervals.
Yeah.
Sorry, what is that? Yet another formalism where we be? I mean, it's more general because a line has ordering in a way that two dimensions does not.
Right. That's why it might be useful with dates, with temporal logic, not with general spatial logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have like concrete instances of temporal logic to some degree with date overlaps Q and date within Q, which behind the scenes use a variation on the regions code for interval arithmetic.
Okay. Well, so look, okay, we've got a definite thing here that is we're going to need to understand for recurring dates.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, okay, I think we move on. I mean, this is clearly a live project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, collections. What is this?
I'd summarize this saying that of the four main combinatorial things, we have three. So tuples, permutations, subsets, and we are missing this fourth one, multisets.
Which is what? Why isn't this tuples?
These are ordered objects, but they admit repetition.
They're unordered objects. I mean, 4-1 is not there because 1-4 is there, basically.
Exactly, but 4-4-1 is different from 4-1. Sorry, 1-4 is different from 1-1-4, for example.
Yes. Well, it does seem like a useful thing. I think the word collections is very obscure for it.
I think the name multiset is more or less standard.
Well, it should probably be a built-in function. I mean, we've got permutations, we've got tuples, we've got these other things. I mean, it seems like it seems useful. So, I mean, it will be multisets of ABC, 2 or something.
Right. Yes, we should imitate what the other functions do, more or less.
Nick is saying group theory tools. Backtick multi. What is group theory tools? What is that?
So that's my internal functionality to deal with group theory. So
we basically already have this function. What it is a data structure. This is just generating multisets.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems like the minimal thing. It's like generating, for permutations, we both got the function permutations that generates permutations. And then we've got this symbolic stuff that you built for dealing with permutations as permutations, which seems to me a higher level issue.
We have a
Yes,
bunch
no,
of multi-set utilities in the function repository that Bob Nakbar did as well.
Which take a multi-set object of some kind.
No, just sublists, lists of lists. Or I think associations maybe too, like what would come out of counts.
Okay, well, then that's a good thing to look at. It seems like this is a worthwhile piece of functionality. My gosh. I don't quite understand this. All right, look, multi-sets seem like they're worth looking at. I mean, this is some kind of outer. Is it? I don't know what these are. Nick, seems like this is your kind of thing to take a look at. Do you agree? Or
Nick
L?
M or
I
Nick
think,
L?
I think
Nick
Nick
L.
M is watching the stream, but not.
No,
M.
Nick L. Nick L.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
Who
for
isn't? Yes, who's here? Most definitely here.
Mhm.
so I added a link to the package I was talking about.
From millions of years ago. Oh my gosh. This is from,
But it has it. You see the flexible notation it takes in the list of possible inputs.
nice. Nice. And it's only a decade old. But what the hell is it doing in the library archive? It says it's from math source.
Well, it's an old package, but I think I've played with it in the past, and it's quite powerful. It will
So
be worth.
let's put it in the packlet repository to begin with, or a function repository if it's just one function.
Yeah, it deserves more exposure, certainly.
Oh, it looks really, really old. How old is it? Is it like 30 years old?
I don't think so much. This says 2011.
Yes, but I don't believe it. Why would it be in the library like this? If it was that recent? I thought we hadn't been adding things for 25 years to this.
I don't know. My interaction with this doesn't go that far.
Right. Well, this looks like a lovely thing. And I mean, my question would be, for people trying to find things for the packlet repository, why haven't we looked in the library if there's things as good as this there? This looks great. I mean, let's reach out to its author, see what, do something about it. All right, let's keep going here. Map nest list. The heck is this? Brad, do you understand this?
I've never seen it before.
Okay, could you take a look at it and see whether you can understand what it is? I suspect it's been superseded by something we're doing with multi-computation. Okay, let's have a quick look down some of these other things. This thing here, I would really like to see us have a function like this, detrend. It's something that I want to do with great regularity. You have some random, some random thing, and it has some, I don't know what, let's say it's a, I don't know, let's say we've got something like this. We've got, table, we've got a random walk of some kind. I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You understand what I'm talking about?
Basically,
Is the
highlight
idea
the
just-
outliers or effectively.
What's that?
highlighting outliers by basically removing, if we have a
Well,
linear
yeah, or
trend.
just very straightforward. I mean, it just, there are plenty of cases where there's some, fluctuations around an overall linear increase or something.
So isn't this already? I mean, I think this is called like the residuals of the fit or something. And I think like linear model fit might have a way of just asking for the residuals.
Probably does, but I still think this is a function that shouldn't require you to dive all the way into, linear model fitting and God knows
Well,
what.
but I think you do have to. I mean, like, I think this function, the user has to be able to say something like, oh, my data is linear, or my data is exponential, or whatever. They have to be responsible for making the call to the fitting function.
Perhaps.
Right? Maybe the fitting function is just like moving average or something like that too. But they have to be responsible for determining the radius and stuff like that.
Right.
I just think this is something that's not too hard, and it's a very well-known technical thing that I think we already make available.
Right, but I just think that it's like, we've got standardize, for example, okay, which just makes things, and I admit I haven't used it very often, but right, that does this.
Right, but I mean, one of the differences though is that there isn't, as far as I know, there isn't some other well-known term that means standardized that we already make available.
Well, but detrend, I mean, look, linear detrending is useful and pretty obvious. You've given some data.
Right.
So,
but I think that the term detrend, I think, is like, I would have no idea what that means, and I would never assume it's restricted to being linear. And so if the point is we're just finding up a different word for like the residuals of the fit.
Yeah.
But there's already a well-known word for it, and we already support it under that name. I don't understand what the point is.
I think we need the statistics folk here. All right, we should wrap up. Right now, we've managed to get through a decent amount of stuff. Next time, again, let's order these in such a way that we can get people in who know about these particular functions.
Okay, yeah, we'll have it collected and have people on call.
Right, and just on call, so that if we get to it, we can bring them in. All right, sounds good. Anything else right now?
Nope, that should do it.
Thanks, guys. See you all soon.